Hello and welcome to another episode of Ewell Acres. Today we're going to continue talking about beekeeping and honey by talking about how to make creamed honey from a start. Let's get started. Now, before we dive too deep into talking about how to make creamed honey from start, if you like what we're doing, if you're getting value out of these videos, please don't forget to subscribe. Click on that bell for notifications. Not only does it help us out with the YouTube algorithm, but it helps so that we can better continue to learn from each other with each other. So let's go ahead and take a look at creamed honey. This is creamed honey. It's the controlled crystallization process of honey. Naturally, honey is going to crystallize and form very large crystalline structure. By taking the honey itself and forming very small crystal sugars, it's going to be nice, smooth, creamy, just like peanut butter. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your start of creamed honey that you have, and you are going to very easily add it to your liquid honey. Now, there's many different ratios you can do it. You can do it a 1:2, you can do it a 1:5. The minimum that I would do it at, though, is going to be a 1:10 process, because you need a little bit of that creamed honey in there to help control that crystallization process, but you don't want to do too much that it makes it a little bit harder. Now, this whole process and idea of making crystallized honey and adding the creamed honey to it is just like the idea of sourdough bread. You're going to have your starter of sourdough that you add to the rest of it to help it form. So we're going to go ahead and start that process now. We've got our nice raw liquid honey that we've poured out into this pitcher. We are going to go ahead and take some of our creamed honey that we've got. We are going to be adding it to this pitcher of raw liquid honey. Now, we are looking of an ideal ratio of 1:10, meaning 1 part creamed honey to 10 parts liquid honey. We're going to go ahead and add this, and when you add it in, you want to go ahead and thoroughly stir it in to get it as thoroughly nice and mixed as much as possible. So that way, the crystalline structures are going to be evenly distributed throughout the honey. So when you go to pour your next jars, it's going to be evenly distributed throughout the entire thing. And you're not going to get some portions of the honey that are fully developed with a nice crystalline structure and others that just didn't get any at all. And so it's going to be not well mixed in, and it doesn't fully help to form that creamed honey. So we're going to go ahead and use the end of this wooden spoon. I like using it because it's not got a lot of grooves. It's nice and straightforward. It really helps to stir in. I can get a good grip on it with the end of it, because this honey is going to be a little bit hard to stir in. But it also makes it a very small surface area, so it's going to be a little bit easier to clean. Now, the downside to using something like this is it's going to take a little bit of time to stir, so we are just going to mash it around and get it as evenly distributed as much as possible. We're going to continue to stir and stir and stir, and this is going to be a several minute process to get it all evenly distributed. Now you're stirring in your liquid, and it's all well and good to say, well, I've got my start to my creamed honey. Well, if you don't already have a start, but you want to use a start, there are a couple different ways that you can actually go ahead and get that if you don't already have your own. You can physically make your own start, which we're actually going to show in a different video that is a little bit more complicated. What you do is you let the honey sit for a long period of time. It fully crystallizes, and then you can take a mortar, pestle, for the DIY version, or there's actually machines that will help to cream it for you, where you break down those sugar crystals in the honey to make it nice and even throughout, so it gives you that silky smooth peanut butter consistency that you're able to spread it. But if you don't want to go do that method and you want to still use it easy from a start, what you can do is go to the store and buy some creamed honey. Make certain it's from a nice natural raw source, so you're not going to be diluting the quality of honey that you have yourself. That way you can take some of that, start adding it in on a 1:10 ratio. Then you can go ahead and make up and fill up your own jars. As you can see here, we've decided to go ahead and use 8-ounce PET jars for you, just because that is a great size that I find works really well. Like we mentioned before, I'm using 8-ounce PET jars. However, there are different jars that you can use. There are many different forms, and it really doesn't matter. I've seen some guys use pint mason jars, quart mason jars. It's a glass jar. It works really well. As you can see, I've got quart mason jar, pint mason jars. It's glass, it's long lasting. You can use it again and again. They're easy to rinse. Or, like we're using, it's 8-ounce PET jars. I've seen some guys use old jam jars that you can fully wash out. I've seen some guys use old peanut butter jars that are a little bit easier to work with. So it really doesn't matter the container that you choose to use. I just find using that this particular container is a little bit easier to work with in these smaller quantities. Well, we've gone ahead and taken all our honey, we've mixed it all in as thoroughly as possible, and we went ahead and filled up our jars. Now it's time to go ahead and lid. You can kind of put lids on it as you go, or you can put them like I have done and just put them all at once. It really doesn't matter, your own personal preference, just whatever works well for you, you can go ahead and do it. So let's go ahead and take a final tally of how many jars it took for us to produce this. Well, we finally have all of our lids on, and we've got our final tally. As you can tell, we've got 6 jars across, and we've got 6 jars going back. So out of approximately 25 pounds worth of honey that we had in that small little pail, and 3 jars of starter, it ended up netting us a total of 36 jars worth of creamed honey. So we're going to go ahead and take that final tally. We did 3 jars of creamed honey, but we actually ended up having a little bit left over from that creamed honey, so we were able to take it and fill up those other 3 jars. So final total tally out of 25 pounds of honey and 3 starter creamed honey jars, we were able to make 39 jars. When you subtract those 3 jars of the creamed honey, in reality, we still ended up with a total of 36 jars of creamed honey. Now, it's still liquid in the state. How do you get to creamed honey? Well, we're going to go ahead and let it sit for a period of 4 to 6 weeks plus, and we're going to let the natural crystallization process of honey work. And so it's going to form those crystalline structures throughout the entire jar, therefore making it creamed honey. Now, keep in mind, this is a long process. It's going to take time. Well, through the magic of video, we've now let these sit for a total of about 6 to 8 weeks. Sometimes it can go faster, sometimes it can go slower, based on what your temperatures are and what's going on in your local area. But every single one of these jars is now creamed honey. As you can tell, it's got a nice, solid consistency. We can go ahead and flip it upside down. It is not going to run out, but it still has a nice, gushy form. So it's not fully formed, but it's in the early stages, so it's going to be a very, very smooth form. Just the point where I like it and where a lot of my customers like it for the creamed honey. This has been another video of talking about how to make creamed honey from a start. If you like what we're doing, if you're gaining value out of these videos, please don't forget to subscribe. Click on that bell for notifications. Not only does it help us out with the YouTube algorithm, but it helps us to continue to learn from each other with each other. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.